Most people think they're making smart money decisions, but they're actually trading irreplaceable hours of their life for stuff they'll forget in months. A bigger car, the latest phone, another subscription. The "I'll slow down later" trap. Later is where dreams go to die, and right now, the average person wastes over 1,000 hours a year on low-value distractions that deliver zero lasting wealth. Here's the myth almost nobody questions. We're taught that the more money we make, the better our lives become. But look around. Plenty of people earn more and enjoy less. They're busier, more stressed, harder to reach, and somehow always waiting for the future to start. They have income, but no margin. They have possessions, but no peace. They have status, but no control over their day. And that's the part nobody says out loud. If your money grows, but your freedom shrinks, are you actually getting wealthier or just becoming more expensive to maintain? Think about the choices that quietly shape a life. Saying yes to the extra shift, then missing dinner again. Taking the higher-paying job with the longer commute, then losing 10 hours a week to traffic or trains. Spending years chasing a salary milestone while your energy, your attention, and your relationships slowly get billed for the difference. We've become so trained to ask, how much does this pay, that we rarely ask, what will this cost me in time? And that question may be more important than almost any number on a paycheck. By the end of this video, I want to give you a perspective on wealth building that most people never learn, because once you see it, it changes how you think about personal finance, financial freedom, and what financial success actually means. The invisible cost nobody calculates is rarely financial on paper. It's the opportunity cost of what you could have built if your best hours weren't always sold off. It's the attention cost of living in permanent distraction, where your brain is too scattered to think long-term. It's the energy cost of making decisions all day until you're too mentally tired to read, learn, plan, or invest in yourself. It's the delayed dream that gets pushed from this year to next year to someday. People are surprisingly good at calculating interest rates, monthly payments, and annual salaries, but very few people calculate years. Very few people say, this habit is costing me 300 hours a year, or this lifestyle is forcing me to work an extra 5 years. That's the silent leak. And once you start seeing invisible costs, you see them everywhere. In the United States, it might look like eating through takeout and convenience because work has drained the time needed to cook, think, and recover. In Canada, it may be telling yourself the overtime is temporary, then realizing temporary has lasted 4 winters. In the UK, it could be the daily commute that doesn't just consume travel time, but steals the mental freshness you need for financial education or building a side skill. In Australia, it may be the social pressure to keep pace with a lifestyle that looks relaxed on the surface, but is financed by busyness underneath. Different countries, same pattern. We count dollars, we ignore depletion. We measure purchases, we forget to measure what our habits are doing to our future capacity. So why does society keep teaching us to chase income instead of time? Because busyness is visible and time ownership is not. People can see the promotion, the new apartment, the nicer watch, the branded coffee cup, and the calendar packed with meetings. They can't always see flexibility. They can't always see resilience. They can't always see the power of having an afternoon free, a lower stress level, or enough breathing room to think clearly about the next 10 years. Modern culture rewards motion even when that motion is disconnected from meaning. Over time, culture praises exhaustion as commitment. Consumer culture tells you to celebrate every raise by increasing your expenses. Social media comparison turns somebody else's highlight reel into pressure for your real life. And lifestyle inflation quietly converts higher income into a more fragile life, where you earn more money but need every penny just to stay in place.
That's how people fall into a trap that doesn't look like a trap. They improve their income, but they never protect their time. So they need the bigger paycheck to support the bigger obligations created by the bigger paycheck. Then they feel successful from the outside and trapped on the inside. This is where behavioral finance becomes deeply personal. Because money mindset isn't just about optimism or discipline. It's about recognizing the invisible behaviors that shape your choices. If every financial upgrade also increases your pressure, your dependency, and your stress, then it may not be wealth creation. It may just be a more polished form of pressure. The wealth equation most people never learn is this. Real wealth is not built from income alone. It grows when income is combined with time ownership, flexibility, financial resilience, and purposeful living. In other words, money becomes more powerful when it buys control. $100,000 a year means something very different to a person with no savings, no flexibility, and no time to think than it does to someone who has lower stress, stronger financial habits, an emergency cushion, and the ability to choose how they spend their week. The second person may look less impressive on paper, but in real life they are often much closer to financial freedom. That's because money is only valuable for what it allows you to do. If it lets you breathe, choose, recover, learn, create, and say no to bad options, then it has multiplied your life. If it only locks you into more obligations, then it has not expanded your future. It has rented it out. The point is not to reject ambition. The point is to build a form of financial growth that increases your options instead of shrinking them. That's the kind of wealth psychology that lasts. Now here's where this gets uncomfortable. A lot of people don't lose their greatest investment through one catastrophic mistake. They lose it in fragments. 10 minutes here, 40 minutes there. Endless scrolling after work because their brain is overstimulated and underdirected. Procrastination disguised as preparation. Unnecessary meetings that create the feeling of productivity without real progress. Impulse entertainment that consumes every evening, then gets justified because I deserve a break. Constant notifications that keep attention too fractured to develop high-income skills or make good financial decisions. Poor planning that turns small problems into expensive emergencies. Staying in financially unhealthy environments where everybody normalizes debt, chaos, avoidance, and short-term thinking. Even refusing to learn new skills has a financial consequence, because the future tends to reward adaptability, not comfort. This is one of the hardest truths in long-term investing and smart money habits. The biggest financial drain in your life may not be visible in your bank account yet. It may be visible in your routines. Because every hour that compounds into skill, health, clarity, relationships, or better decision-making has value. And every hour repeatedly lost to distraction, confusion, or avoidance has a price. Time investment is not a motivational slogan. It is one of the most practical forms of wealth building. When people talk about how wealthy individuals think differently, they often make it sound mystical. It usually isn't. Wealthy people are not perfect, and many are deeply inefficient in certain parts of life. But one principle shows up again and again. They try to buy back their time. They automate repetitive tasks. They delegate low-value work when possible. They build systems instead of relying on willpower every day. They invest in education because financial literacy improves the quality of future decisions. They focus on leverage, not constant hustle. That leverage might come from technology, hiring help, improving communication, building assets, learning to negotiate, or creating something that continues producing value later, whether that's a business system, an audience, a skill stack, or passive income from long-term investing done responsibly over time.
The average person can use these principles too, just on a smaller scale at first. Buying back your time doesn't always mean hiring a team. Sometimes it means meal prepping so you stop losing weekday evenings. Sometimes it means turning off notifications so your mind can finish one meaningful task. Sometimes it means spending a weekend organizing your finances so you stop paying late fees and mental stress for the next 6 months. Sometimes it means learning a tool, a platform, or a skill that saves you 5 hours a week forever. That is investing in yourself, and in many cases, that delivers a better financial return than chasing quick money. I want to make this real with a story. A few years ago, a woman named Leah was working a stable office job in Toronto. She wasn't reckless with money. She paid her bills, contributed a little to savings, and did what most people would call the responsible thing. But she was constantly tired. Her weekdays disappeared into work, commuting, errands, and low-energy recovery. On weekends, she told herself she needed to rest, which usually meant sleeping late, ordering food, scrolling, and trying not to think about Monday. She kept saying she wanted to learn more about investing, improve her communication skills, maybe take a certification, maybe build a side income, maybe get healthier. But every goal stayed in the future tense.
Then, one evening, she visited her parents and realized she hadn't sat down with them for a real conversation in months. Not because she didn't care, but because her life had become one long chain of postponed intention. On the train ride home, she did something simple. She opened her calendar and estimated where her time had actually gone over the previous month. Not where she imagined it went, where it truly went. The number shocked her. She had spent more time on passive entertainment and low-value digital drift than on exercise, reading, learning, planning, and meaningful relationships combined. Financially, she wasn't collapsing, but strategically, she was underinvested in her own future. That realization changed her, not overnight, and not in some dramatic movie-style transformation. She started small. 3 evenings a week, she protected 1 hour before touching her phone. One night was for financial education. One night was for a professional skill. One night was for life admin and planning. She started walking during calls. She cut a few expenses, not to suffer more, but to create a little breathing room. Within a year, she had negotiated better pay, improved her confidence, reduced financial stress, and most importantly, felt in control again. The money mattered, yes, but what really changed her life was not just more income, it was recovering the hours that had been disappearing unnoticed. That's the part people miss. Financial success often begins long before a bigger paycheck arrives. It begins when your schedule starts reflecting your priorities instead of your impulses. It begins when your time stops being available to anything that is urgent, loud, or addictive. It begins when your financial habits support your future self instead of constantly borrowing from them.
So here's a practical framework you can start using this week. At the end of each week, give yourself 30 quiet minutes and ask 3 questions. First, what gave me energy, skills, clarity, or progress this week? Second, what drained time without giving anything meaningful back? Third, what 1 hour next week can I protect as a high return hour? That protected hour is not for random errands. It is not for catching up on noise. It is for your highest value future activity. That might be reading about personal finance, practicing negotiation, updating your resume, building a portfolio, learning a tool, improving your health, reviewing your budget, studying investments, or strengthening a relationship that actually matters. 1 hour is small enough to be realistic and powerful enough to change direction. If you repeat that weekly, you create something most people never build, a life with intentional compounding. Not just financial growth, but cognitive growth, emotional stability, and practical leverage. And that is where financial resilience comes from. Not perfection, not hustle for hustle's sake, consistency. Quiet, strategic, repeatable consistency. Because in the end, money is important. Of course it is. It pays for safety, options, dignity, experiences, and peace of mind. But money can often be earned again. Lost years cannot. Lost seasons cannot. Lost attention cannot always be recovered in the same form. The greatest investment isn't money, because money is only one tool. Time is the asset underneath every tool, every opportunity, every relationship, every skill, every goal, and every future version of you. So maybe the real question is not, how can I make more money this year? Maybe the deeper question is, what am I doing with the life I'm already being paid in, 1 hour at a time? What is one activity stealing your most valuable investment? And if you suddenly had 1 extra hour every single day, how would you invest it? Let me know in the comments. If this video gave you a fresh perspective on wealth building, financial freedom, and the psychology behind smarter financial habits, make sure to like, share, subscribe, or follow for more psychology-driven finance content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.